Please welcome John Brown, CEO of Agoda.
Thanks, Hoon.
Close your eyes for a minute to see it just ain't free. Lift your eyes for a minute to see it just ain't free. Crazy chin from the chest. You know that love, it ain't your best.
Hey, John, how are you? John,
I'm very good. How are you, Hoon? Good to be here.
yeah, we got to stop meeting like this, right? Because for once, we actually have to meet face to face. All right, but the last time,
I'm looking forward to that. Give me just 1 or 2 more months and we're face to face.
yeah, the last time we spoke, I don't know if you heard the songs that we were playing just now, but the last time we spoke, I asked you to pick your favorite campfire song, right? And you chose the Redemption song by Bob Marley. And so what do you think has been the single biggest redeeming feature of the pandemic for you?
I think for me, it's been the fact that you get used to getting by with much less, that you realize you don't need 1,000 friends. You need your 5 or 6 good friends that are in your pod. You need your family. In my case, I've been in this room here for 4 or 5 months with very little stuff. And I have a big apartment full of stuff in Bangkok, but I realized, I don't really need that to be happy. Sure, I want to get back outside, but you really can get a lot of pleasure from a much smaller group and a smaller world.
Okay, less stuff and less friends. Okay, so it seems like throughout this pandemic too, we've been vacillating between hope and despair, right? Sometimes there's a light and then it switches off. And where are we now in the graph of hope versus despair? What is the hard truth that your data is telling you?
We're very much on the hope area. You see the way the bookings are trending in Asia. You see the way that the vaccine rates are finally beginning to come up. All the markets around Asia, for the most part, are doing very well. So for me, it's really clearly this hope that the worst of COVID is finally behind us.
Okay, and I can see that in your LinkedIn post because I saw that you're back in hiring mode, and I picked out something where you say, travel tech isn't experiencing a burning ship situation where everybody is jumping off. Travel is gearing up for a rebound like no other. So in that response, that call for talent, what kind of response did you get?
We got an amazing amount of response. People from all over the world seem to want to get back into travel these days, I think, because primarily if you're in the West, if you're in Europe or in the US, you see what's happening to travel. You see record-breaking booking levels in the US. Even now in India, you see record-breaking booking levels. So I really think that a lot of people now, we see at least, really want to get back into travel. So we see really more interest in coming to Agoda than ever before. And we're hiring a bunch of people and ready to go. Right.
But is the talent coming back from travel? Are there new industries, new tech sectors that have just said, okay, I'm coming to travel because, they've been through the best and now they're absolutely going to take off like a rocket ship? What kind of people are you getting?
It's coming from all over the place. I mean, we obviously, and I won't lie, obviously we lost a lot of people during the pandemic where people thought that travel was not the place to be. But you begin to see that turning now where the people who are on the beginning edge of the curve say, wow, travel is going to look really, really good. So we're getting people from other travel sectors, other tech sectors in general as well. Really, really from across the board, we see this spark now of interest that travel is coming back and it's a place to be if you want to get in at what I would call an early stage before the big boom.
Okay, so when you talk about, in your quotation, you say travel is gearing up for a rebound like no other. I mean, what kind of rebound are we talking about? Are we talking about like a kangaroo hop or a little foxtrot?
Oh, well, I think it's more like the cow jumping over the moon. I mean, it's going to be bigger. We expect it to be big, and I honestly think it's going to be bigger than we even expect today, based upon all the data that I begin to see coming in terms of search intent and also actual bookings.
That's awesome. Now, I want to ask you, everybody's talking about reimagination, right? So when I ask you product and tech, customer experience, or accommodation of these three, which is the biggest reimagination that you're most excited about?
I guess, Agoda has always been a tech company first and foremost. So for me, I have to say product and tech, but that obviously bleeds right over into the customer experience anyway. But things like the fact that we're connecting the trips together now, finally, we really are at the point where you see flights, not just bookable on Agoda next to accommodations, but then really becoming inextricably linked into the one piece of a trip. That's very important for us. Or the notion that no one's quite there on yet of keyless entry, showing up in the hotel lobby and just walking to your room and getting into your room without having to interact with somebody at the desk. Those are things that have certainly been accelerated by COVID. I'm really excited about them and seeing how those play out in the actual marketplace in the coming years.
Right. So I was speaking to your Omri, who's your product guy. He's a CTO, Omri. And I was asking him about flights, right? Because Agoda is building flights. And he was saying that it's going to be different from anybody else, right? So how are you reimagining it to be different from everybody else? Because flights has been done a lot, and it's tough.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good question. First of all, I have to clarify. Omri is our chief operating officer. He used to be the chief product officer, but now he's the COO. But he's certainly our primary tech person. And I think what Omri's talking about is that many people have flights available now on their platform, but it's not too many people who really have, let's say, what I would call a proper shopping cart, right? So even today on Agoda, you can book a flight or you can book a hotel. You can kind of package them together. But what we want to be able to do, and you hear Glenn Fogel from Booking Holdings talk about this, it's the same idea that it's not just booking different elements of travel. It's really having them all together in one place in a shopping cart, the kind of thing you might see on Amazon, where you've got the 6 different components of your trip: flights, some ground transportation, some experiences, accommodations, being able to view them all together, being able to swap out one room for a different room, maybe change your flight, but then ultimately seeing it together in one place. It's bookable instantly. If you want to call customer service, your customer service representative will see exactly the same thing that you are seeing. So it really is, again, as Glenn says, it's that connected trip that nobody has really done well yet in the industry. And so when I think about what we want to do with flights, that maybe first and foremost is the case. And it doesn't apply to flights, obviously, but accommodations and every other piece of that connected trip. It's really building that seamless experience, which sounds easy to explain, frankly, pretty hard to execute, but that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, as everybody's been trying that, so we look forward to the manifestation of that product when it comes out. Okay. Now there was a lot of talk yesterday from James Liang, a lot of other speakers about how it's made people think about the way you organize your workforce, right? And Trip.com is doing a hybrid work trial where it's 3 days work from the office, 2 days from home. How are you reorganizing your workplace?
So we're doing a couple of things. I think you probably hear a lot of other people yesterday saying something similar, that we're going to allow greater flexibility. So we'll allow people to work from home at least 1 day a week. Maybe we'll experiment with 2. At the same time, this year, we've already let all of our employees go for up to 7 weeks to go back to visit family, be with people that they have not been able to be with in the past. So we're going to keep that program going also in 2022. But the one thing I would say is that, everybody talks about how travel and the work experience is going to be changed forever. I tend to be somebody who thinks that things don't change as much as you think, that people will revert to their prior ways. And even though we do have a pandemic of really an unprecedented scale, I honestly think that people go back to normal pretty quickly, which is why I love the quote that you had put at the beginning of the questions you asked me about the best of times and the worst of times from Dickens. I always love that quote, because what he's really saying is not the best and worst of times. He's saying is that the time he's talking about is so identical to the current time that he's got to resort to all of these superlatives to try to make a distinction, but really that the time isn't all that much different. So why I say that is that coming out of COVID, honestly, I think that the world will be changed in some ways, but really I think it's going to be much more similar to the past than people think.
I agree with you, John, actually, because human nature is, essentially pretty hard to change. Like, we have this room here and we're told not to shake hands, but our human instinct is to we wanna shake hands, I mean, it's that intrinsic human nature. So I believe that human nature will prevail. Now, one of the biggest frustrations of this crisis is also the fact that there were many things out of our control, right? The virus, science, politics, governments, irrational behavior. How did you stay focused on what you could control? Because that was one of the hardest things as a leader, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously I can't control governments, I can't control science, and sure, Lord knows I can't control the virus. The one thing I try to do as a leader is it's something I always follow is that when everybody else is really paranoid, I try to get really, really calm. And when everybody else is really calm in the company, that's when I get really paranoid, thinking, folks, you're missing something. So in the last 18 months, everybody was paranoid about the virus, about attrition, about the fact the world's never going to come back to normal. And the thing I did the most, I think, is to say, everybody, listen, stay calm. We're going to be able to get through this. We've got the best workforce of any company that I know of. We've got the best culture. We're going to support each other through this, even though we're going to be working from home. So I think that what we did, we pivoted, and I can talk about a lot of tech stuff, but I think in terms of the people themselves, we did a great job at keeping our workforce motivated, keeping everybody engaged. We just got back a bunch of employee survey results literally 2 days ago, and I was thrilled to see that they were actually, our levels of engagement and satisfaction are higher than ever. So it's something that, I can't take credit for all myself. It's really the team overall and every last person in the company saying, hey, we really believe in this family of Agoda. We believe in the culture. We will get through this. Don't worry. We will go back to normal, like I was saying in answer to the prior question. So we really did that well. And in a company like Agoda, where the people are your asset, we don't have a lot of, property, plant, and equipment or anything like that. People are the asset, and maintaining those people, maintaining that culture, that enthusiasm, and that spark, that's by far the most important thing in our company. And I think we came through that one with flying colors.
Excellent. So another hot topic is fintech, right? And yesterday we had Frederick from Hopper talking about their fintech products and how it accounts for 70% of their revenues now. How do you see payments and fintech fitting into Agoda? And I know that you also have signed a partnership with a buy now, pay later scheme as well. So if you can share with us, what kind of progress are you seeing with that particular BNPL model?
So there were a couple of things in fintech. The one actually that I'm the most proud about is really, it's not the buy now, pay later. We've had different forms of that on our site for quite a while. What I'm most proud of is we had something called Agoda Pay, where we effectively wanted to be a payment processor on behalf of hotels and customers. So that when a customer came to a hotel, they'd be able to swipe their card on an Agoda box. And that's a really hard thing to do from a regulatory point of view, from a tech point of view. The economics can be difficult. And obviously when the pandemic hit, it wasn't the time to be trying to process payments for customers coming into hotels. So we had to do a pivot there. And what we built was instead a virtual credit card product. So most of our hotels now, when we pay them, we're paying them via a single-use virtual credit card, which we can self-issue. And when you self-issue, it's a lot less difficult or thorny from the reg aspect. And so I'm super happy about that. It's delivering a huge amount of value to Agoda and to Booking Holdings overall. And it's an example of something where we had to really pivot because of COVID, and it's turned into a great product. And that's just one of the many areas of fintech that we're trying to get involved in. And as you said, the BNPL stuff, that's something we've done for a while. We're working with different partners to figure out how we can extend loans to our customers, et cetera. So there's so much in that space happening, as you know, and we are involved in many areas of it.
Right. Do you see the BNPL model as a method of payment, or do you see that as a customer acquisition strategy?
I see it, as both. That a lot of customers, once they are on the site, for example, they will, when they see there's a BNPL option, they will certainly choose that. So it certainly helps in conversion. But if you go to a lot of places too, where there are people who have a credit card, let's say, but not enough of a credit limit on the card, who might try to go to a competitor site and they realize, well, I can't make my dream booking because my card doesn't have enough credit limit on it. And then they can go to Agoda and suddenly make that holiday come true. We do think in that case, it would certainly be a customer acquisition strategy as well.
Okay, so one of the products that you built during COVID is your ASQ service, which is the quarantine hotel for Hong Kong, Singapore, and certain markets, right? Yesterday, we issued a challenge to a few individuals here, and basically their recommendation is we should scrap quarantine requirements for all vaccinated travelers, which would be the ideal situation. So how long do you think your ASQ product will be needed, you think, whenever WHO declares the end of this pandemic?
I would have been really pleased to say that the ASQ product is worthless because everybody's vaccinated and we don't need it anymore. Honestly, that would have been the best for the world, certainly for travel. But given where we are in vaccines right now in Asia, I just don't see we're at that point yet. So I expect there to be some form of ASQ going deep into 2022. And, obviously a lot of the countries will shorten the quarantine period. Already in Thailand, it's gone from 14 days down to 7. And I expect a lot of other markets to continue to shorten. But there may be, I think, for some extended period of time, at least maybe even a one-day quarantine where travelers come to a new country, they get to their hotel, they at least have to be there one night, overnight in quarantine until they can prove a negative test result. And if that's the case, I don't think that will be a big barrier to travel because a lot of people will come into Asia, they're jet lagged on their first day anyway, so they won't really even mind one day to chill in a hotel. And then once they get that negative test, they'll be back out there in the world. But so I do think in summary, ASQ or some related product will be here for some quarters to come. Hopefully, though, in a shortened form.
Actually, that applies to me, John, because, I'm taking a flight out in November and then I'm going to return in December. And before I return, the travel agent is asking me, please give me your address of isolation, right, before the PCR test is approved. And I don't have a place where I can isolate on my own. So, I would have to book a hotel room still to isolate myself. So maybe it's going to be needed for some time. Now, Thailand has been reopening in sequence, right? Phuket, July 1, and then Bangkok talking about in other provinces. What kind of inbound demand have you seen since July?
We see it really begin to tick upward. Now, it's not where we would want it to be because international travel still comes with just so much red tape, I would say, that even if you're going to fly into Thailand, for example, you still have to do a fair amount of paperwork. You're going to be in a sandbox. And I was in the sandbox up until recently, and I'm still in Phuket now. But I will say it's getting better. I think when the last time we spoke, I was in a full quarantine in Bangkok. I had been back to the States. Now it was in the sandbox, which is a heck of a lot easier. And I will say anecdotally that, I've been in Phuket now for a couple of months. And the one thing I see is that every day, literally every weekend, there are more and more people here. And I talk to them, and many of them actually are coming in from overseas because they either have gotten a great deal on a hotel or a flight, or because people still want to get the tail end. And we talked about this before. They want the tail end of that experience where the beaches are empty and the reefs are empty. And it really feels like you've traveled back to Thailand in time 40 years ago. People really want that. And this is the tail end of that. So I do see that more and more people are coming in. And I would expect, though, by the latter part of 2022, hopefully international travel is getting back to something close to what would be called normal in Thailand, when they've got 35 million visitors coming in during the course of a year. That might be 2023 before we get there, but you certainly do see the travel is on the uptick. I see that in the Agoda numbers, and I see that physically around me every day.
Okay, all right, we're going to wrap up with rapid fire. So one word answer. Which competitor do you respect more after this?
I would say our hotel suppliers. And by the way, I don't necessarily call them competitors. I know we jostle over channels. But honestly, the way they have had to take care of their staff, support staff when there were very, very few travelers coming in, do everything they could to stay open. I've spoken to so many of them, and it's really just heartwarming to see how hard they've worked to make sure they could stay open and provide for their staff.
Hotel suppliers. Okay, which competitor do you respect less after this? One word answer.
The airlines who
Okay.
hid behind bankruptcy
All right,
and
okay.
did not refund travelers.
All right, which non-travel outsider coming into travel are you watching?
Amazon.
Okay. Did you have a Zoom shirt, and if so, will you burn it when it's over?
I've got 4, and they're all toast in about 4 weeks.
All right. What worried you at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't wind up being a problem at all?
The people issue I talked about before. I thought we were going to have a horror show with our staff. It's turned out very well.
All right. Thank you, John. Next time, see you physically face to face, all right? Either in Bangkok or in Singapore. Thank you. Thank you. Please join me in thanking John.